Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would bring you along with me to try to learn a new skill, because I haven't learned a new skill in a long time. I recently tried to learn a backflip, and you can go watch that video to see how it went, but if you've never watched one of my videos before, I basically teach myself gymnastics at home, and today I thought I would try to learn a standing aerial. Since I already have a normal aerial, I figured it shouldn't be too difficult to do it standing, and if you don't know the difference between a standing aerial and a normal one, the standing one is just that you start from standing, which takes a lot more power than if you would have a run-up. It's definitely a lot more difficult because I know I struggle with getting enough power, so should be a little bit difficult, but we're gonna see if we can learn it today. And what I thought I would do here is basically just take you along with me on this process of learning a new skill. So this is going to be kind of like a follow-along tutorial, because I'm going to be learning this skill at the same time as I'm doing a little bit of a tutorial on how to learn this skill. That is, if I learn it, which I'm kind of just hoping I do, but I hope this video can give you some inspiration on how to go about the process of learning a skill on your own. And in this case, it's of course specifically a standing aerial, so I'm hoping this helps you if you're trying to learn a standing aerial. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and let's get into me actually learning this skill. So for the first step here, it was of course time to warm up, so I just started by doing some cartwheels and some other skills. This is kind of always my warm-up routine. I usually just do a bunch of random different skills that kind of feel related to the skill I'm trying to learn. And next up, I just decided to see if I still have a normal aerial, because that is kind of essential here, and thankfully I did. And when I go into the process of learning a new skill like this, I always try to decompose it into different parts. So for example, in this case, when I look at a standing aerial, I can obviously see that it's based on a cartwheel, so then you have to kind of think like, how can I make this cartwheel come closer to this aerial without having to immediately try an aerial? And a really good way in this case is to try dive and push cartwheels, which is just when you, for a dive cartwheel, you kind of do as it sounds. You dive into the cartwheel, you don't put your hands down until the very end. And for the push cartwheel, you kind of do the opposite. So you put your hands down at first, and then you quickly pull them up. And for a standing aerial specifically, it was of course important to do these cartwheels from standing. So basically a standing push cartwheel and a standing dive cartwheel. The last thing you can do is just kind of combine these two cartwheels, which kind of just results in a cartwheel where you try to really lift your hands up as quickly as possible, and you try to hold them up for as long as possible, which is kind of how you get used to the feeling of not putting your hands down. And what I did in the very last step was just to attempt a standing aerial over and over again. Because when you have all of these like foundational parts of the aerial, you can get into actually practicing it, because you know the technique, and it's just to keep practicing until you get it at that point. And that is what I did here. It took a little bit of time, but since I can already do a normal aerial, a standing aerial isn't that far off. In this step though, you really have to use your leg strength to just push off the ground and get as much height as possible. The difficulty of a standing aerial mainly comes from the fact that, you have to start from standing, and it's very hard to get power if you're not doing a run-up. Here I just kept practicing, and I did eventually get it. It wasn't super pretty, but I did land it, and I'm pretty happy with that. As you could see, I did manage to learn a standing aerial, which I already knew when I was filming this. As you can see, I'm in the same place, and it's like 10 seconds later. My form obviously needs to be improved and everything like that, but I hope this video just kind of helped show you a bit how you can go about the process of learning a new skill like this. As I said, I have a very general process when it comes to learning a new skill, and that is basically just to decompose the skill into different parts, which is something that is pretty obvious, I guess, but some people just jump straight into attempting a skill, and that is just not a good way to do it. If you break a skill up into different parts, it makes it so much easier, and it's also really just fun to be able to look at a skill yourself and kind of see what you should practice to get it. If you're, for example, learning a back handspring instead, what I did when I was learning a back handspring was to start with back walkovers, and then kind of just starting to jump into the back walkovers, and then eventually just lifting my feet off the ground earlier and earlier. And that's kind of how I got my back handspring. A lot of people, when they get their back handspring, they kind of begin immediately to just try to jump into it, and that's kind of how you break your neck. So It's a lot better to build a foundation of easier skills and then use these easier skills to work your way up into the actual skill. Let me know if there are any other skills you want to see me learn, but that was everything for this video, so I really hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching!